There was a king, and he had a daughter, and she was abducted. He vowed to protect her, you see, but while he was indulging himself shamefully, she was abducted. They tried to get her back and failed. Now, his advisors realized that if the girl returned, it would reveal the king's shame to the country. So they told him that she was dead.
Ain't nobody here but two people in green.
It goes beyond that.
Nothing goes beyond that.
This girl, they told the king that she was dead, and everybody grieved. But she was alive.
Then you better go get her.
Hello, Canada, and the world at large. This is Lane from Canada. Since Hollywood and the media have shown a shocking and likely demonic reluctance to say these words in the past few weeks, I'll say it for them. Human trafficking and child sex slavery are bad. Just needed to get that out of the way. That movie's awesome. Also, the blue-haired people in the media who are attacking the most seem to be actual pedophiles, so you should watch it just to mess with them.
And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head. And I need a peculiar. That's a huge. So I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and get real high and loud. Straight to the top of my lungs. What's going on? And I say, hey.
Yeah, media people suck. Again, that gentleman's name is Noah Berlatsky. He is a communications director for a foundation called Prostasia, which seeks to destigmatize pedophilia and end all bans on child pornography. And he is a currently employed contributing writer for Bloomberg, The Atlantic, and The Washington Post. And now, because I'm sure your brain and eyeballs need to be Windexed, here's a more likable high school kid completing a Rubik's Cube in 3.13 seconds. I've been told that I get too political in these videos. My only response is, the blue-haired people like Noah Berlatsky started it, and they sure as hell ain't apologizing. And it's funny. Welcome to Before Movies Sucked, and this is Spartan. Robert Scott is a covert government operative, and that's about the only thing I can really say about him with any certainty. His military friends at the Delta Force training cadre call him Bobby and Master Gunner. The film's Wikipedia page calls him former Marine Force Recon, and friends in his hometown call him John and believe that he's a traveling salesman. Also, the Secret Service apparently have him on speed dial when the president's kids go missing. This is the most ambiguously straightforward film I've ever seen, and that contradiction of terms is one of the things I love the most about it. Who is Robert Scott? Don't care. He's the man who gets the girl back. After assisting with cadre selection for Delta Force recruits, Scott is abruptly detained on his way home and picked up by a helicopter. After being flown to a university in Boston, he is met by Secret Service agents led by Agent Miller. It is revealed that their principal is a student named Laura Newton, who is strongly implied to be the daughter of the U.S. president. Laura has been missing for several hours, and one of the agents who was supposed to be watching her dorm that evening did not check in and is believed to have been away from his post when Laura vanished. Laura's father was reported to have covertly visited Laura in Boston that day, after which Laura had a makeover, cutting her famous red hair and dyeing it blonde. Without a current photo, the team is forced to digitally render an approximation based on the hairstylist's description. They also learned that after Laura returned to her dorm, she had an argument with her boyfriend, Michael Blake, and has not been seen since. The Secret Service is watching Michael, and is also searching for one of Laura's professors, Gerald Sloan, who is known for having extramarital affairs with his students. Miller begins interrogating the agent who is off post, and we first observe Scott's ability to become whatever role is needed of him. He immediately poses as a Secret Service agent, claiming that he witnessed the abandoned post and violently attacks the man for lying. Michael is spotted attempting to break into Laura's mailbox outside of her dorm, and Scott impersonates a campus security guard to confront him. Michael says he regretted his argument with Laura and had been attempting to retrieve a breakup letter he had rashly sent to her. Scott pretends to be empathetic and allows the young man to vent to him, in the process learning that Michael had suspected Laura of cheating on him with Professor Sloan. He'd called Laura a whore and told her to go to a club called the Backlight, where it is rumored that wealthy businessmen pay female students for sex. As Laura's behavior that day had been erratic, including her sudden makeover, the agents suspect that Laura may have gone to the club as an act of defiance. When Scott returns to HQ, he's informed that Laura's missing agent confessed to leaving his post early to visit his girlfriend. Needing extra personnel for the search, which they are desperate to keep away from the media, Scott is partnered with a young soldier named Curtis who he'd met at the Delta Force cadre. However, before they can leave to investigate the club, a gunshot is heard and Laura's agent is found dead, having apparently killed himself in shame with a small hideout pistol. Visiting a club called the Blacklight, Scott poses as a John looking for a young prostitute, but is dismissed by the owner, Jerry Zimmer, as they are past closing time. Scott and Curtis accost Jerry as he leaves to go home, finding a suspicious envelope containing thousands of dollars of cash in his— oh yeah, and then this happens!
15 thou.
What's that for?
I think you broke my arm!
Where's the girl?
You broke my arm!
Now it's broken.
Now there is a man's man who chooses truth over a lie or even over an easy misunderstanding. Anyway, no matter how much society tries to make pimps gotta be pimpin' a good thing, pimps are still pawn scum and all of them deserve at least one good compound fracture per fiscal year for the duration of their operations. Jerry panics and confesses that he sent a girl matching Laura's description to a rundown bordello. The agents raid the bordello and learn that the girl who Jerry sent there was drugged and taken away by two men, presumably to be trafficked overseas. The men were called for the pickup from a payphone, and it is determined that the calls were actually made from a federal prison by a Libyan prisoner named Tariq Asani, who is still covertly managing the sex trade.
How did you know to come pick her up? How did they know to come pick her up? Who did you call?
It's just a number.
Write it down. Write it down. I'm gonna see what I can do. Just give me the number.
I don't understand. She's just some girl.
Oh my God. They don't know who they've got.
The team tracks a man from the payphone to the coastal town of Essex on the outskirts of Boston. While the team apprehends him, Scott and Curtis proceed to a beach house, which they believe to be a staging area for the traffickers. While Curtis provides overwatch from the beach, he sees a Picasso symbol drawn in the dust on a window, which Laura was known to sign her letters with. While clearing the beach house alone, Scott is startled by two armed men. As he attempts to bluff them, the men raise their weapons, forcing Curtis and Scott to kill them both. However, the property is empty, leaving the team with no more leads. A senior agent named Birch arrives with another mysterious man, Stoddard. Knowing that Laura will be killed as soon as she is recognized, Birch takes Scott aside to speak in private.
Keep it locked up.
What about if we had to go off the meter? I need a man who can unquestioningly follow orders.
The door is closed, sir.
I need to ask you to do something.
I am here to get the girl back, sir. And there is nothing I will not do to get the girl back.
This man placed a phone call yesterday from the phone bank at Florence to the Copley payphone. Now here's the cutoff point. Here it is. This man, Tariq Asani, is to be transported tomorrow with another convict. A man on death row. A man on death row for their medical procedures now.
During the prison transfer, the team stages an elaborate bluff. Scott poses as a robber at a gas station, while another agent poses as the marshal transporting the two prisoners. In the ensuing gunfight, Scott pretends to kill the marshal and the store owner, and frees the prisoners, although Tariq is accidentally injured in the crossfire. However, Scott then executes the man on death row, and prepares to kill Tariq as well. In a panic, Tariq confesses to his entire trafficking pipeline, insisting that he can take Scott to a safe country and make him rich if he lets him live, even promising him that he can get him a young blonde woman if there's one in the pipeline that night. Scott relents and the two men flee together. Curtis discreetly tails them, listening in to Scott's wiretap, as Tariq gives details of how the women they capture are shipped to a safe house in Yemen and then sold to wealthy buyers from across the Middle East. Scott pulls into a store to buy dressings for Tariq's wound, and Curtis tells him that the team will be ready to assault the plane hangar on Scott's signal. However, Scott will be alone for the first few minutes, and Tariq's men will probably try to kill him. Needing all the protection he can get, Scott takes Curtis's pistol and ammunition. However, when Curtis tries to get more ammunition for Scott from another agent, Tariq sees the agent's badge through a window. When Curtis follows Scott outside, pretending to be a cashier giving him his change, Tariq shoots him with a shotgun. Scott is forced to shoot and kill Tariq to save Curtis's life. A raid on the plane hangar finds no trace of Laura. Scott teams up with a Delta Force sergeant named Grace to plan a rescue mission to Dubai, and an Army sergeant named Jacqueline Black requests permission to get on the plane as well, knowing that the traumatized Laura will need the company of another woman when she is rescued. But as the team's colonel outlines the strike plan, a news report breaks that Laura Newton's body was found in the ocean along with Professor Sloan, both of them having drowned when his boat went down. It appears that every step the team has taken since going to the nightclub has been following false leads. The mission is aborted and Scott returns to his quiet life in rural Pennsylvania. However, Curtis tracks him down, showing a red earring that was caught in his matting when he was on the porch of the shed outside the beach house. Scott realizes the earring is identical to the one that Laura was famous for wearing at all times. Scott and Curtis secretly return to the beach house to look for clues. Oh yeah, and then this happens!
Hey, it was over here.
Well. Bye.
For a guy who takes a diabolical delight in not issuing spoiler alerts, I'll actually break code and give you the heads up that this becomes a pattern with just about everyone Scott teams up with.
You want to gossip or you want to shoot somebody?
Me and Mr. Scott came to take you home.
After bluffing the sniper with a scarecrow, Scott sees the Picasso on the window, finally realizing that Curtis was right. Scott flees and searches his personal gear, discovering a tracking device in his phone. Realizing he is now being hunted, Scott contacts an Israeli operative named Avi, requesting help from their Israeli allies in creating a new identity. He then covertly travels to a lavish rehab center in an attempt to contact the First Lady, who is being treated for alcohol addiction. Scott briefly speaks with a woman, posing as a Secret Service agent on the First Lady's detail. However, when the woman reveals that she is actually Secret Service, Scott shows her Laura's missing earring, convincing her that he is evidence of Laura's disappearance. The agent reveals that the president was not in Boston to visit Laura as reported, but instead to party and engage in extramarital affairs, which he has been doing for years. To avoid discovery and bolster his own security, he had taken additional members of Laura's detail for himself, including the agent who Scott had interrogated. The president's inner circle realized that if news ever broke that Laura was taken because of her father's appalling actions, there was no way he would not be impeached or lose the upcoming election. They fabricated the story that Laura had drowned with Professor Sloan, implying that they also killed the two people who were reported to have drowned on the boat, and Laura's Secret Service agent. As heartless as the president was, his advisors knew he would have continued the search for his daughter until she was found, which would have ensured his own exposure, so they also told him that Laura was dead. Scott secretly meets with Sergeant Black, confiding to her that Laura is alive and that he feels afraid. However, Black reminds him that he is now the only one who is still searching for the girl. Not willing to leave her to a horrific fate in the desert, Scott determines to find Laura and bring her back to the safety of her father. Relative safety. With help from Avi's contacts in Israeli intelligence, Scott learns the location of the Dubai safe house where Laura is likely being held. He travels to Yemen, where Avi has arranged for him to be met by an Australian operative named Jones, with a retrofitted shipping container which they plan to use to smuggle Laura back to the United States. Scott and Jones surveil the safe house and finally see Laura, but realize that she is being moved that night. They engage the traffickers in a gunfight to free Laura, although Jones is killed in the melee. Scott escapes to a hotel with Laura. As Laura recovers from the drugs she was kept sedated with, she cries that her father took her protection away and refused to even come and see her on the day she was taken. Scott claims her father was the one who sent him, and Laura compares him to Leonidas, the king of Sparta, who would only send one man when his allies begged him for military aid.
I don't want to go home.
Look, you go home. Some wave their hats, some turn their backs. It's all the same. None of them know where you've been. It's all the same. You tough, honey? I think you're tough.
I'm just going to say that is one of my all-time favorite film lines. People can judge all they want. Only you know where you've been. Under the cover of darkness, Scott smuggles Laura to the shipping yards at an airport. However, with Jones dead, he has nobody to seal the container, and tells Laura that she'll have to travel alone while he seals her inside. As they share a last cigarette, Scott realizes that there is another tracking device in his knife, and remembers that he handed it to Grace in a bar.
Nice knife.
Yeah. Got enough an East German fella.
He give it to you for a gift?
No. As I recall, he was rather reluctant to part with it.
Grace and Stoddard arrive at the shipping yards in time to see Scott and Laura fleeing into an airplane hangar. Scott sees a Swedish news service plane preparing for takeoff and attempts to get Laura on board. Stoddard calls out to Laura, who knows him as one of her father's circle, saying that Scott is trying to kidnap her for the ransom. Grace is killed while ambushing Scott, but Scott is also shot and badly wounded. Stoddard pretends to rescue Laura and hands her over to his driver, quietly implying that she should kill her. However, the driver is revealed to be Sergeant Black, who helps Laura towards the airplane where she is seen and filmed by the news crew. Realizing that Black is in league with Scott, Stoddard shoots her as Laura and the news crew flee into the plane. Before the plane can take off, Stoddard takes aim at Laura, but Scott cuts his throat with his limited-run Severtech Spartan Auto folding knife that you can still buy online. As the plane taxis away to safety, Laura catches a glimpse of Scott, realizing that the man who saved her life is still alive.
We brought the girl back.
Yeah, she just took the long way home.
Sometime later in London, a bearded Scott watches a news recap of Laura returning safely home to her father, while Birch claims that the drowning of Professor Sloan and his girlfriend was an accident that the Secret Service had to take advantage of in order to safely rescue Laura. A tired-looking man watching from beside Scott comments,
God,
Time to go
this
home.
one daughter has been returned to her home, and we vow that we will not rest
Lucky
until
man.
all who have suffered her fate.
one of the biggest complaints about modern movies is their irritating belief that the audience cannot understand anything unless it's fed to them in Gerber's form on a spoon, including the filmmaker's viewpoints on such everyday things as the distinction between good and evil. Subtlety in writing and characterization seems limited to whatever the characters identify as, with no complexity or nuance beyond that. This is especially evident when movies and TV shows are written by the blue-haired people, which is why Star Trek characters are now ugly and fat and literally lecturing one another on the evils of misgendering. Spartan is as far from that as any movie you'll ever watch. We're dropped into the shoes of one man without explanation, and we're only ever told as much as he is. There are even a few times where an attentive viewer will pick up on a detail that Scott himself seems to miss, leaving the audience more in the know than the hero. That is one of the rarest things of all, with the possible exception of a few slapstick comedies where we intended to laugh at a bumbling Dr. Watson-type character who misses an obvious clue. But as a general rule, we depend on the knowledge of our heroes to tell us the story, and it's actually kind of unsettling as we are aware that Scott and his team are seemingly being led astray. One of the things I love most about David Mamet's script is that exact allowance for human error on several occasions. Curtis attempting to help Scott by giving him extra ammunition in the store is an obvious example, forcing Scott to kill a Saini to protect his team, but is a believable mistake that someone would make. A few minutes later, when Curtis tells Scott that he saw Laura's Picasso sign at the beach house, Scott believes him to be delirious from his injuries and medication.
Where's the girl? We gotta get the girl back. I saw the sign.
What?
I saw the sign.
Then you are truly blessed.
Even the club Scott and Curtis investigate at first seems to be a red herring. Michael tells Scott the club is called the Backlight. However, when they're sifting through the possible locations, Scott immediately picks one called the Blacklight. It seems as if Scott and Curtis had misidentified the target and just ended up investigating a random sleazy bar. This confusion is only amplified throughout the search as the bar owner, the brothel madam, and one of the prostitutes Scott questioned don't seem to recognize Laura's digitally rendered photo, again suggesting that the entire search was in the wrong direction. Even more intriguingly, this would mean that everything that went wrong was Scott's fault, as he picked the wrong nightclub at the very beginning of the investigation. Even the two men at the beach house give no indication that they have done anything wrong, and it could be argued they only attempted to apprehend Scott at gunpoint because they believed he was a home intruder. Reasonable assumption when you find a stranger holding a 1911 in your vacation home in the middle of the night. Speaking of the men at the beach house, that scene is my favorite example of human error. When Scott is startled by one of the men while searching the home, he is clearly taken off guard and gives one of the best weak sauce lines in film history.
I heard the TV, so I came in. Why the hell you got the TV on? There's no one here. No, I don't want to hurt you. Why would I hurt you? I just want to know why the TV's on.
Yeah, perfectly normal. Can't tell you how many times I've almost been shot because I heard somebody's TV on at midnight. Nice cover, Bobby. Curtis discovering a red earring on his mat seems to be the first real clue that they were on the right trail, which is finally verified after he's killed, and Scott sees Laura's Picasso symbol on a window. Everything that happened before that could credibly have been determined to be nothing more than a misunderstanding. That takes some skill for a writer to pull off, and it's a reminder of why David Mamet is so dang good at what he does. It's probably not a coincidence that the spelling of red herring and red earring differ by only one letter, and it's also probably not a coincidence that the red earring is what actually proves everything that preceded its discovery was not a red herring. And that fun little subversion of expectation is how David Mamet wins Pulitzers. I also love that there is never a moment of flashy action in the film, which is fully consistent with the elite training of the soldiers. When Scott first meets Black, they have a great exchange which shows Scott's viewpoint on combat, based on his many years of experience.
What you got you teaching here, young sergeant?
Edged weapons, sir. Knife fighting.
Don't you teach him knife fighting. You teach him to kill. That way they meet some son of a studied knife fighting, they send his soul to hell. It's all in the mind, Sergeant. That's where the battle's won.
The rest of the movie uses this dialogue as a template for the action scenes. The gunfights are quick and brutal, Scott punches Laura to silence her when she panics and screams, and even Scott's final killing of Stoddard is exactly that. It's a killing, not a knife fight. Even in good movies, the level of understatement seen in Spartan is normally reserved for slow-burning, character-driven dramas. On the other end of the spectrum, action movies with zero character development are pretty standard, relying on a rapid-fire pace and fun factor to carry you through to the end. Spartan occupies a weird space somewhere in the middle as a lower-budget suspense thriller seen almost entirely through the eyes of a lead character who has absolutely nothing to say about himself. We literally get a few words of Scott's backstory smattered throughout the movie, but we still get a perfect depiction of the type of man he is.
Up.
Hey, you want some more dope? Want a Dr. Pepper?
I'm tired, sir.
You wish to quit? If your mission is to quit, there's no better time than right now. You can quit now. Get it over with.
I can't catch her.
I understand. Just take those numbers off and put them in my hand. What's that then?
This was my father's.
You carry it over there?
Yes, sir.
Can you come back?
Yes, sir, he did.
You carry it then. Maybe it'll save your life. Light a fire with it or something. What the hell's that?
That's the wedding ring, sir.
You hear that? The sentry you're sneaking up on, he can hear it too.
Who's lying, you or him?
Son of a I got 15 years in. I got 2 kids. You're not gonna sit there and lie away my pension. Do not say you were there.
I was on post.
She was here. Where is she?
I'm entitled to my rights. I'm entitled to my phone
You don't understand. You're gonna leave your life or you're gonna leave the information in this room. Rozumisz?
That's gotta hurt.
Now it's broken.
Dang, I love Val Kilmer, and there is no other movie where he's been allowed to shine without interruption like this. He clearly loved the character he plays, and has stated in interviews that he read the script more than 200 times before filming the movie. The devotion shows in the final product, and I'd put this role as neck and neck with Kilmer's portrayal of Doc Holliday in Tombstone, and in full honesty, I've probably watched this movie a lot more. Could this movie be made today?
I'm here to take you home.
Presented without comment.
Shut your mouth.
Some women just need that.
But women are irrational, that's all there is to that. Their heads are full of cotton hay and rags. They're nothing but exasperating, irritating, vacillating, calculating, agitating, maddening, and infuriating hags.
Shut your mouth.
A female character requires rescuing.
It's horrifying. I'm so sorry.
You want a cigarette?
Can you produce one?
I believe I can.
As previously mentioned, Disney Marvel, Disney Star Wars, Pixar, the media, and various other blue-haired people have demonstrated repeatedly in recent days that they couldn't give a rat's ass about global sex slavery, human trafficking, or concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims operating in the same regions of China where Disney filmed Mulan in 2020. However, they will shoot a puppy in the face before allowing tobacco products to appear on a theater screen.
Wabbit season! Wabbit season! Duck season! Fire!
Hey, mate. Are you Mr. Brown's cousin?
No, Mr. Jackson couldn't come.
People who see racism everywhere could get so much mileage out of the code names used in that exchange.
First, we're gonna seal off this.
Man to man, can you get me on the plane?
Now, why would I want to do that, Sergeant? I mean, if you owed me money or something. Might want to give you a job.
They're gonna need a woman there. For her. They haven't thought about that yet, but they will.
Hey! A strong female character don't need no man, and she don't need no woman either. She don't need anybody. No people. No motivation. No obstacles. No expectations. She needs isolation, an internet connection, basic cable, a $3,000 smartphone, maybe some cats. Kind of like that screenwriter's self-insert version of Wendy Moria Angela Darling in Disney's new Peter Pan and Wendy, who found true happiness in her ability to fly by envisioning her life as a lonely, unmarried screenwriter girl boss who literally dies alone in her apartment. Get with the times, hot cop lady from Third Watch.
Los pues.
You're not all boys. So? But I guess it doesn't really matter.
It matters, you fake Wendy-ass.
Conflicted.
Cover your head.
What's the matter? You don't like blondes?
Whole world likes blondes. That's why you're here.
I've been reliably informed by Hollywood that the whole world actually likes body-positive black lesbians with a half-shaved haircut and highly limited acting ability who put Obi-Wan Kenobi in the back seat of his own TV series.
Tell me where the Jedi is, or this man and his family die! Acting! Brilliant!
You fag, my friend?
That word makes Matt Damon cry.
Matt Damon!
You like girls?
Better question, you've been so long, you like girls.
Scott's insinuation that a sufficient endurance of prison rape can transition a heterosexual male into fabulous would probably be enough to get him sent to a court-ordered hate speech re-education camp if he was in Canada. Figure your shit out, Canada! Here's a more likable bug-eyed elf with chronic incontinence explaining how allowing homosexual men to date in public without fear of discrimination leads to a more free and equitable society.
Mandates are the way to avoid further restriction.
Oh, no!
Oh, you nasty-ass bastard!
Anyway, should Christ tarry, I'll see you in the next video. Jesus loves you. Vote Lane for King of Canada. Telling you to go watch Sound of Freedom was way more important than the outro joke that I would usually put here. And let's make movies great again.
Put him on the endangered species list.
Come on, man.